It's about to get serious. The first college football playoff rankings will be released this week. But before they are, we are taking a look at the newest edition of the AP Top 25 poll. 7 ranked teams took a loss Saturday, which means plenty of spots up for grabs. The top 8 teams all won, so those rankings stay the same except for one major shakeup. Tennessee moving up to number 2 into a tie with Ohio State. Georgia staying at the top. They are followed by Michigan, Clemson, and Alabama. Now here's where the chaos begins. Kansas State up 9 spots to 13 after its blowout of Oklahoma State. The Pokes fall down 9 spots to 18. Wake Forest tumbling out of the top 10 to number 20. Syracuse sliding down 6 spots to 22 after losing back-to-back games. Liberty, Oregon State, and UCF, the newcomers to the poll, which means Kentucky, Cincinnati, and South Carolina are the dropouts. Time to welcome in Brandon Marcello to break this all down. Let's start with Kansas State. They opened as a pick'em against Oklahoma State, and even when kickoff rolled around, they were only favored by 1.5 with all those injuries. I don't think anybody expected this 48-0 rout. So what are your thoughts about this?
It's incredible, especially considering how Oklahoma State the week prior against Texas in that victory. It's insane. It's a historic win. You know, Oklahoma State has not lost that way since 2009 in Bedlam when they were shut out. But I look at Kansas State and I wonder, what are we forgetting here? They just lost a game 8 days ago on the road, and yet one win at home when we're overreacting and saying, let's jump them 9 spots. One of the biggest jumps in all of college football this entire season in the AP poll. This is a 2-loss Kansas State team. They have a 2-1 record against ranked teams. One team they lost to at home was Tulane earlier this season. Tulane's a good squad, a 1-loss team, but still a group of 5 school you lose at home. Great win for Kansas State. Very much deserved that they're a top 20 team. Top 15, top 13, I'm not so sure on that. That is a huge overreaction by the pollsters.
Let's talk about Wake Forest, who gave us what was probably the worst quarter of football we've ever seen. 5 turnovers leading to 35 points for Louisville, and I think Scott Satterfield summed it up best, saying the third quarter was remarkable. I've never seen anything like it. Your thoughts on the Deeks?
You know, it's crazy. We entered this season without an 8-turnover performance by a college football team in 13 years. We've had 2 in back-to-back weeks, and both of them are ACC teams. A week ago, Miami, and now Wake Forest. Listen, Wake Forest lost that game, yes, but I think they're overreacting, the pollsters, by dropping them 10 spots. Louisville needed a lot of those turnovers, including pick sixes, to beat Wake Forest. Kansas State, on the other hand, just bludgeoned Oklahoma State and did whatever they wanted. Louisville, the story wasn't that simple. And Wake Forest, dropping them 10 spots in this poll compared to, Oklahoma State only dropping 9. Why are we not dropping Oklahoma State further, just like the pollsters were overreacting with Kansas State beating them? Wake Forest is a squad that took Clemson to the brink and on the ropes. They have looked like a top 10 team for most of the season. Now, all of a sudden, they're not because it took 8 turnovers for Louisville to beat them. I'm not sold on the pollsters dropping Wake Forest that far.
All right, give us your underrated team. And this is a fun one because we're going back to the top of the poll here.
Everybody's going to be talking about Tennessee being tied with Ohio State for number 2. My issue is that Tennessee should be number 1 over Georgia ahead of this monstrous matchup in Athens this weekend against the Georgia Bulldogs in the 1 versus 2. Tennessee leads the country at 5-0 against ranked opponents. No one comes close to that other than TCU in the Big 12, which has 4 wins. Georgia has 1 win against a ranked opponent, and that was all the way back in week 1 against Oregon in Atlanta. And Tennessee has by far the best win on its resume of anybody with its victory against Alabama. So what am I missing here? Tennessee has 5 times the resume in my mind than Georgia with 5 ranked team wins against 1. So I think we're looking at some recency bias here. Hey, Georgia was great last season. That offense hasn't been quite explosive as we want, but they still won a championship last year. Their defense is still giving up some points here the last 3 weeks, but that's okay. They needed a rally in the last few minutes against Mizzou, but hey, that's okay. Way too much credence has been given to Georgia right now, and not enough respect is given to Tennessee, which has just gone out every week and just beaten the brakes off of everybody, including 5 ranked teams, the most of anybody in the sport.
Yeah, Georgia was kind of playing with its food against Florida, too. I think a lot of people are still thinking about that championship trophy. What about your overrated team?
Well, I've got to look at USC out west right now. I mean, listen, they lost on the road to Utah just a couple of weeks ago, and how soon we forget that. And Utah is a team that was even then hurt with some injuries. And Utah right now, they're just decimated. They've got three of their best players on offense out, and yet they still managed to get a win this past week. But USC has 0 wins against ranked opponents. 0. And yet we've got them number 9 right now in the poll. I don't get that. UCLA, right across the town, has 2 wins against ranked teams, and yet they're ranked below USC at number 10. At the very least, they should be flip-flopped. If not that, USC should probably be outside the top 10 right now. In fact, I'd put them closer to number 15 in my rankings. USC, we're in love with Caleb Williams, Mario Williams, Jordan Addison. That's fantastic. But they've had to gut out some wins, and they got that loss on the road to Utah, a 2-loss Utah team. Not sold on USC being a top 10 team right now.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. And stay with us all week long and throughout the season for your best college football coverage right here on 24/7 Sports.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.